Have the Diocese of Leicester come up with an amazing plan to bring lots of people to Christ and at the same time save themselves from financial disaster? Or not? Hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Rev Dan. I'm a vicar in the Church of England, and today on Digging Deeper I'm going to look at the Diocese of Leicester and what's happening there with their move over to Minster Communities. Is it going to save the diocese? Is it going to save the Church of England, or will it be a complete disaster? We're going to have a look. So it's got into the mainstream media. This is a headline from the Telegraph: anger over plan for mega churches with just 3 priests. Angela Tilbury was quoted a lot in here, but Reverend Brett Murphy, who did an interview online, an excellent interview with Roy Faulkner, and you can watch that here. It's actually not quoted, but some of the quotes are from him about what's happening in the Diocese of Leicester. Now, Brett is in the Diocese of Leicester. I believe his area is going to be the next one that's going to come under these minsters, whether they join or not. I'm going to interview him on this channel about that very soon, so please subscribe, click notification bells so you make sure you don't miss that. But it's something that is happening, and there's lots of changes. So the article continues: changes in Leicester will bring 23 parishes, that's 35 churches, under the Lord Minster Community, which some church members claim will mean just one full-time minister represent the congregations, and it does. It's quite a radical change in the parishes. Will there be parishes as well? The diocese claim that there will still be parishes. Of course, there'll still be parishes. The legal implications to change all that would be a complete nightmare. So the parishes will stay, but will they be just parishes by name only? I'm going to be using different articles here from the Church Times, from the Telegraph, from the Diocesan Synod, minutes, so I'll be jumping from different ones to different ones. So this says the Lord Abbey Minster Community was launched on the 30th of April on the Sunday. This is the first day of the Diocese of Leicester's Minster scheme, which seeks to align all 234 parishes to large groups. So you've got 234 parishes in the Diocese of Leicester, and the diocese want all of them. They want all of them, and we'll get into that a bit later, how they're doing that, to join up into minsters. And looking at my notes, I think they want about 20 minsters. So you're looking at quite large areas of churches, of land as well, across, and this will be across urban places and rural places, how that would look, and how the ministers will go from an urban to a rural. That would be quite demanding if you got one minister. So is in the article. Looking at my notes, and I should look at the screen. They were originally intended to be 20 to 25, but Angela Tilbury wrote, I hear that one is made of 35 former parishes. Each group will have 3 priests, 2 of them are pioneer ministers, plus lay administrative staff. About 600 worshippers within the parishes will be affected in an area with the total population is 7,800, smaller than many other places in the country. So, some of these parishes will be quite small churches. Some of them will be quite big. And stealing off Brett's interview with Roy Faulkner, 80 of those 234 parishes, 80 of those churches pay over their parish share. So you have to pay for your vicar, and you pay for their housing and their stipend, their wage, and pension and things like that. You contribute to that. Usually around, on average, where I am in the Diocese of Oxford, about £50,000. And so 80 churches pay more. That means other churches aren't paying enough individually. That's why they're put into what they call benefices, where you get lots of parishes together. And so they contribute together to get that magical figure to have a full-time vicar. So some of these bigger churches that can afford their own vicar are being asked to come into these parishes, these minsters, and not potentially, I think they will, from the sounds of it, lose their vicar, lose their minister, and have an oversight minister. And we'll get into that. So let's get into some context. So when this started, I think back in 2018, 2019, from what I understand, they were invited to have a look at the new models going forward. So this is a pre-COVID thing, and a kind of reaction to getting to having a 2.3 million deficit. And this is where churches are and dioceses are. This is a reality, and especially post-COVID, where we have less people coming to church. I think it's about nationally 20% of congregates aren't coming back. Lots of families and lots of children have been lost. So it really is affecting, and it's looking at what the future might look like. So yes, I understand this is a reaction for what's going forward, but we have to hold it. We're an Anglican church, and we are a parish-based church with a minister in each of those parishes. Yes, not all parishes now would have a minister, but they would cover an area and be in a benefice of parishes. But that's a model of the Church of England. This is going against the model of the Church of England. So they were presented with three options: a Minster church, mission areas, and network churches. And what came out at the end was a combination of A and B Minster churches and mission areas. Minster Communities were in line with the 5 diocese strategies of new communities, intercultural communities, intergenerational communities, so I can't say it, eco-communities, and reconciling communities. So that's what they have got as their strategies. Most dioceses have strategies. So the diocese got this, the whole thing is called the Shaped by God Together process, and it's taken over a year and had 400 conversations. And a year's really not a huge time for such a big change, but if they are discerning, if it's God's will, then 400 conversations with Bishops' Council and the Aerodeans and lay chairs scrutinising their proposals. The framework that emerged out of that was Minster Communities, was a hybrid of the two models, which was received significant support from the extended Bishops' Council. So when you read these, and it's not being too cynical, but it's about asking questions. There were 3 options, but there wasn't the option to continue as the Church of England is, as a parish-based system with a priest for parish or benefice. That wasn't there on the option. It seems like they were presented with 3 options, and it has to change. And we all acknowledge sometimes there is a need of change, but there's also put more staff on the front line, basically, and having more priests out there. Joint interregnums, when an interregnum is when is between when you've got priests in the church. Traditionally, you could say that the church doesn't grow. In fact, it declines a bit. Some a bit, some a lot. Some do grow, but when you haven't got a priest there, it's kind of, you'll lose people. You will lose people. So I think having that option there as a 4th option to continue would have been really important, but it obviously wasn't there. So they did a hybrid of 2, and again it says receive significant amount of support from the extended Bishops' Council. But so this is the extended Bishops' Council deciding that and which ones to put forward before going to the synod. Bishop Martin explained that he was seeking. This is from the synod where they had the meeting in October 2021, and they wanted a 2/3 majority for the approval of the framework. The applying framework should involve detailed local conversations with PCCs, first expressions, and schools. Bishop Martin stressed that in spite of what synod members may have read in the local social media feeds, the parish is not in danger of the proposed Minster Community framework, but in very fact much part of the proposals. The plan is that each parish, first expression, and schools will work together to support and encourage one another. The framework envisages a mixed ministry team in each community involving stipendiary and self-supporting clergy, lay ministers, pioneer ministers, one of whom will have a focus on children and young people through growing faith. So just watch this, because I think this is what the solution is for each churches, and this is from the bishop.
So a mixed ministry team supporting these Minster communities. Priests, stipendiary and non-stipendiary, deacons, pioneers, readers, pastoral workers, evangelists, a whole mix of different sorts of ministries, but it's worth saying with an ever greater emphasis on self-supporting ministry. So I've asked our vocations team already to start to shift the work of some of their vocations work to focus more and more on self-supporting or non-stipendiary ministry. The only way any of this is going to work, we know, is to ensure that we have more and more non-stipendiary ministers, such that every church community can have its own minister while still being supported by other ministers from the wider Minster community.
So as I said before, keeping the local parish is a nightmare. It could cost so much money in lawyers to re-establish boundaries and all that it's just easy to keep. But the plan is, and this is why you got to look, is they want non-stipendiary ministers to go into each of the local churches, and the local churches to do a lot. So you'll have like 2 or 3 priests, but one of them will be a pioneer minister looking at children and families, not necessarily a bad thing, but they're going from 100 priests down to 80. They're getting rid of 20%, but they also want to bring in operations directors who do all the administrative work, which is amazing. Administration, it does take a lot of vicars' time sometimes, but they are paid roles, so there'll be about 20 of them. So in effect, you're going from 100 clergy down to 60 clergy covering these areas. Yes, they don't have the administrative stuff going on, but you're getting rid of 20 clergy to have 20 administrators, or operations director, as they call them. You know, there's a lot of work that clergy do, frontline work, funerals, weddings, baptism, and preparation that goes into that, visiting, home communions, midweek communion services on a Sunday, going to old people's homes. You know, there's just attending different events. There's just lots of different things that we do in our role, and taking that away, it will take away the focus of the parish in that sense. But they want to, well, their answer will be, we've got non-stipendiary, but non-stipendiary would either be people who've got enough money or retired, but they're not got enough time to invest as a vicar has. We're given a wage, so we commit 6 days a week to that. Or their main focus will be a Sunday. And we're not a church, it's just about Sunday morning. Sunday morning is about worshipping God. There's a lot of other stuff to do. So very much seems like, well, you'll get a vicar if we can find that many as well. That's a lot of non-stipendiary clergy to fill. All those churches, if you think 234 parishes, if you take that they've got one church each, there's 234 churches. If you only got about 60 clergy, it's a lot of non-stipendiary. I may be wrong on this. Put comments below, help me on this, but there's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of detail that's need to find out. Also, help me on this bit. This is what I didn't get. So, in order to require, if you were there, this is from the minutes. In order to require 2/3 majority, the synod then approved the suspension of the relevant paragraph in the standing orders, as votes of synod are usually agreed on the basis of simple majority. So I don't understand this. I know that something has changed to get this through, and why? It might be quite a simple a simple thing that just needed to be done, but I would like to know why that was changed to get things through. So it talked about these are the minutes from the synod. The synod then considered 2 proposed amendments to the motion. The first of these was John Walker proposed further work and delaying his decision until a future meeting of the synod. But this was defeated, 75 votes to 19. Chris Johnson then proposed an amendment to require the oversight minister in each community must be ordained. The amendment was passed 53-26. Did you get that? The oversight minister in each Minster community must be ordained. So the proposal was put forward that the oversight minister was not ordained. So, which just seems crazy. So, in the original proposal, was it to get rid of more clergy? Now they have to keep clergy. Did they want to bring lay people in? What's the point in being called by God and being ordained? How did sacraments get administered? Who's going to be doing baptisms, communions, home communions? Who's going to do blessings? It's that seemed like an alarm bell for me. How can you put this forward and not have an ordained person who's overseeing? We are called, and this is the whole thing. It's about the cure of souls. We have the cure of souls, the spiritual welfare of our parish. So that's being taken away, and then not to have. Well, it's not being taken away because technically you have an oversight person, so one person for 35 churches. Anyway, going on. Synod then heard from speakers against the substantive motion, with 7 speakers highlighting issues such as the difficulty in working in areas across differences of church tradition and theology, the need for more consultation, and a preference for working out the details before voting on the principle. See, there's something's being brought and details aren't there, and that's quite scary being brought, and they said we'll work these things out after. Vote on this and we'll work all the details out after. Once you voted on something, that's dangerous. But also, this is right, working across different church traditions. You got different church traditions. Evangelical parish, tried Catholic parishes and liberal parishes. But I'll tell you one thing, since LLF, and LLF happened since the 1111 faith with blessing of same-sex marriages, it really is a divisive vote, and now a parish which will not bless same-sex marriage. How can they work with parishes that would bless same-sex marriage, especially when there's not a minister there? How would those parishes on either side receive an oversight minister who would either be traditional or liberal on this? And across 35 churches are going to be very, very split. So how are they going to reconcile this now? I know that they want it to be reconciling communities, but this is now very divisive at the LLF vote. So I don't know how that's going to be worked out, and to make this, it could be a real hurdle for them. So the diocese says that there is consensus about the Minster scheme, but some have complained that where the archdeacons did their rounds to explain the proposals, what they actually offered was 3 varieties of the same plan. That's what I was saying before. They offered its change. In one way or another, it's going to be changed. And this has all been done for the archdeacons. Others have suggested that some who question the scheme have been given hints that their future in the diocese could not be guaranteed, which could, of course, be justified given the inevitable cuts in clergy numbers, which is a veiled threat if it's said like that, and I hope it isn't, not in Christian circles. But here, they're not going to get rid of clergy. They're going to let clergy retire, but clergy retire randomly in different churches. So, what happens if it's a big, good church, a strong church, that pays above the parish share, and the clergy are going to, one of the clergy is going to retire there, the incumbent, and they will get replaced or won't get replaced. And how does it work? Because retirement's random by age, not by geographical location. So I don't know how that works, and so that would be interesting to know. After more than 2 hours of discussion and debate, Synod approved the adoption of Minster Communities by the Diocese framework with ordained oversight minister in each community. Well done, by 65 to 25, with a clear 2/3 majority amongst the clergy and laity, with 1 abstention. So the Minsters are going to happen in the Diocese of Leicester, but there are questions people want answered. This is one from the frequent ask questions page. All links for this video are down below in the description. So this one is, how many people will be employed to run a Minster community? Will I lose my vicar? Or will we? Every Minster community team will have an ordained oversight minister And there will also be other clergy, self-supporting, retired, non-stipendiary chaplains. So that's confirming what we were saying before, as well as lay ministers. So they want a lot of lay ministers to come up and do a lot of the work as well. Serving each of the Minster communities too. It will be up to the local parishes and worshipping communities to work that out together. So we're doing this, and now you've got to work it out prayerfully and in a structured discussion with each other with support of the diocese. So in each parish you have what you call a PCC, the leadership, elected leadership of the church, a parochial church council, and they work with the minister for the mission in the parish. That's the number one thing, but they also discuss and are responsible for each PCC is a charity for the building and the churchyard and any other buildings that they have, and they're on policy and things like that. They talk about getting rid of the PCCs and having what do they call them, a joint church council across this whole Minster, and so all the assets get joined to this whole Minster. So you imagine you're in a Minster, you're one of 35 churches, and suddenly your assets, your church, your parish hall, all go into a joint council, which would be quite worrying. And how if it's a joint council, many questions on this. If it's a joint council, if the wall's fallen down, who pays for this? How does the money work out? There's a lot in here, and not in the diocese, so it's a bit hard to know, but it'd be good to understand some more of these things. So it says it would be up to the local, so the precise deals are the best combination for their own Minster community, so it's down to the local Minster community to work out. Imagine 35 churches, trying to work that out is quite a lot. Sacramental ministry will of course be maintained in every worship community. It will have its own name, local minister, as well as other support reliant on non-stipendiary people. So this is a very worrying question if you're in the Leicester Diocese on a PCC. Does each PCC choose to join a Minster community, and what happens if they don't? Listen to these answers. Based on the vote in October 2021 Synod, we, as a whole diocese, have committed to implementing this framework. We have also agreed, as a diocese, to focus our resources on our diocesan priorities, and to do so within our Minster communities as they are formed. Thus, a refusal to participate will mean a reduced level of resource being available to the individual parish. So if you don't come in, you're going to get less resources. What does that mean? Well, a parish outside of the diocese, you don't need to really use the diocese, but the resource that you get from the diocese is the incumbent, through paying your parish share. So is that what they're saying? You could go from full-time to half-time. What exactly is this? This goes on to say, yes, if it will be a choice for the PCC. No church can be forced to join a Minster community. We're not forcing you to say, but if they choose not to, they will miss out on the opportunities for mission and support that working together with other parishes will provide. Very difficult to, across huge parishes, to do mission in your local area. If you're working with, say, 15 other churches in your local area where they want to do mission in their local area, your resources are then spread across that area. You've got a successful ministry in your town, but they're wanting to do something in somewhere else, and so resources are going there, but you already got this established ministry which needs continual funding, and so it makes it very difficult. So I don't get how the mission support, because you're always naturally going to be looking at your local area, and that's the way churches just have worked for hundreds and hundreds of years. So I'm not quite sure how these Minster communities work from that point of view. Any church seeking, listen to this, any church seeking to opt out of the framework will be invited to consider the implications of the decision with a conversation with the diocesan leadership and support staff. If you don't, come on, you naughty people, we're gonna you're going to have to come and speak to us and understand the implications. Well, the implications are that they continue to be strong individual churches and don't go in there, and any resource that is then not given, well, I'm sure they can support themselves unless you're going on the clergy. Now, if they're paying up to their parish share, they should be getting a full-time clergy. So this for me is it's not even a veiled threat. It's there. Don't come on, and you're going to be punished for coming on. And it's under the guise of these are our priorities, and you're not going into the priorities. And these could be good, strong, growing churches as well. If you don't conform to what we want, we don't care what your ministry is like, you're not going to be getting the resource and support that we need. Imagine that you've got a really great successful church, really 800 people going to your church. Now we're going to go our own. Oh, I need to phone the diocese about something. Which church you from? Yeah, no, we're not helping you. Bye. Is it going to be like that? Really? So with the oversight minister and overseeing all these parishes, trying to get them to work together. It's like I used to work in retail. It's like have an area manager. It becomes a less personal. How can you be personal? How can you be a parish priest? You're not going to be a parish priest anymore. You're a manager, and that's a very specific calling. Not all priests are going to want to do that. I wouldn't want to do that. I get some people would want to do that, and that's their calling. But you're not your parish priest anymore. You won't get to know your local communities. You'll be called here, there, and everywhere. Yes, I know that they want to rely on the non-stipendiary clergy to be the local clergy. But what's a calling about? And the oversight minister isn't in the ecclesiastical law that in the Church of England. It's something they probably have to write into the law. I don't know how all that works. So a lot of communities will feel quite worried about this. But let's take some positive. A lady from the Telegraph comment section called Joan Gibson wrote, "I have worshipped in this group," that's a group that's been a Minster, "for 43 years. The new proposals seem exciting. We are not able to sustain the model that existed in the 70s or 80s and many years before. Those times are gone. We are in tiny communities, so the need for safeguarding officers, etc. is problematic. This looks like a practical way forward. There will be all sorts of problems because we are a rural community working with tiny numbers. We have fantastic heart." And that's one thing on the other side. You talk about the volunteers in the church and safeguarding officers and get people on the PCC and church wardens and treasurers and secretaries, and there's a huge amount, and some churches will struggle with that. We're struggling with that at the moment, trying to find volunteers for those roles. So having this in these Minster communities actually could be relieve some pressure. That could be a good thing, but that's administrative. How could you get some of the administrative work in a group? But again, that comes under a benefits and things that you just naturally have to sort out. So anyway, this lady thinks it's a good thing. Marcus Walker on Twitter, Vicar St Bartholomew's in London, and part of Save the Parish. And Save the Parish is great. It really is about saving the parish. Leicester, he says, merging 23 parishes into one with only 3 priests serving them all. Utterly unsustainable. Death for dozens of parishes. Nervous breakdown for the priests. Which is, strong words. There is a worry about this. There's a lot written. There's a lot to get your head around, and it's only just starting. It might work. It's a reaction to a deficit. Getting rid of priests, frontline staff, I don't think is the answer. The parish system, which serves every inch of the land, this is changing, even though they're saying it's not. The reliance on non-stipendiary to fill in the gaps is a huge ask. And what about their housing? If they're retired clergy, it's going to be house for duty. What's going to happen with the housing stock? There's just so many questions. But maybe it works. Maybe, in their discernment, this is what God's plan is for them, and maybe this works, and it will be a model that many other dioceses will take on and move forward. We will have to see. It could be happening in my diocese because Leicester's just nailed it, and they've gone big, and and it's answered a lot of prayers and a lot of discernment. Or maybe it'd be a disaster, and because they're in debt already, will the Church of England come and save them? But even if the Church of England came in and gave them money, a lot of the local churches will be destroyed. A lot of the local parishes will be destroyed. It's a big gamble. There's lots of big questions. Put your thoughts in the comments. Is this right, or have they made one of the biggest mistakes that the Church of England have ever seen? Join me on Friday for Rev Dan's Roundup, where I look at all the news happening in the Christian world.